In the golden light of early dawn, a weary traveler climbed a rugged mountain path. His eyes, heavy with fatigue, reflected a sorrow so deep it seemed to weigh down his very soul. His name was Rohan, a man who once carried dreams as bright as the sun, but whose hopes had now turned to ashes. Each step he took felt heavier than the last, burdened by failure, regret, and a gnawing sense of emptiness. After what felt like hours, he reached a small clearing where a Buddhist monk sat quietly beneath an ancient tree. The monk's presence exuded peace, as if he were a still pond untouched by ripples of time. Without saying a word, Rohan collapsed to his knees. His shoulders trembled, and silent tears traced paths down his weathered face. The monk opened his eyes, his gaze gentle and knowing, as if he could see into the deepest corners of Rohan's troubled heart. "Why are you here, my friend?" the monk asked softly. Rohan struggled to find words. "I have lost everything," he whispered. "My business failed, my family turned away from me, and my heart feels like a broken vessel. I thought coming here would bring me some kind of peace, but it feels hopeless." The monk studied him for a moment before speaking. "You are carrying a heavy burden, Rohan, not on your back, but in your mind. Tell me, have you ever tried to set it down?" Rohan's brow furrowed. "How can I let go of something I cannot see? This weight, it's not something I can simply drop." The monk nodded knowingly. "Let me tell you a story." And so, beneath the shelter of the tree, the monk began to share timeless teachings, lessons that would change Rohan's life forever. The first lesson was about the present moment. Most of us, the monk began, live either in the past, replaying old regrets, or in the future, fearing what might come. But the truth is, the past is gone, and the future is uncertain. The only place where life truly exists is in this moment, right here, right now. Rohan listened intently as the monk continued. When you are trapped in your thoughts about what has already happened or what might happen, you are not truly living. You are merely existing in shadows, missing the beauty and potential of the present. The monk pointed to a single leaf fluttering in the breeze. "Do you see that leaf, Rohan? It exists only in this moment. It does not regret falling from the tree, nor does it fear where the wind will carry it next. It simply is." For the first time in days, Rohan felt his breath slow, his chest loosen, and his mind quiet. "But how do I let go of the past and stop fearing the future?" he asked. The monk smiled. "Begin with your breath. Every inhale is a beginning. Every exhale is a letting go. When you feel overwhelmed, focus on your breath. Anchor yourself in this moment, and you will find peace." The next lesson was about the weight of emotional baggage. "Rohan," the monk said, "imagine carrying a sack filled with heavy stones. Each stone represents anger, regret, jealousy, or self-pity. Every day, you carry this sack wherever you go, and it grows heavier with time. Now tell me, how far can you travel with such a weight on your shoulders?" Rohan shook his head. "Not far at all." "Exactly," the monk replied. "The burdens you carry in your mind are just as real as that sack of stones. But unlike physical weight, this burden cannot be seen. It can only be felt. And unless you make the conscious decision to set it down, you will remain trapped by its weight." The monk instructed Rohan to close his eyes and visualize each negative emotion as a stone. "One by one," he said, "imagine yourself placing these stones on the ground. Release them. Let them go." Rohan's breaths became deeper, his shoulders more relaxed. For the first time in what felt like years, he felt lighter. Not because his circumstances had changed, but because he had begun to change his relationship with his emotions. The monk's next teaching was about self-reflection and inner healing. "Your mind, Rohan, is like a mirror," the monk said, "but over time, dust and grime accumulate on its surface. Negative thoughts, doubts, and fears cloud your ability to see yourself clearly. Healing begins when you start cleaning that mirror." "But how do I clean my mind, Master?" Rohan asked. "Through stillness," the monk replied. "Sit quietly each day, even if only for a few minutes. Breathe deeply. Observe your thoughts without judgment. When negative thoughts arise, don't fight them. Simply acknowledge them and let them pass, like clouds drifting across the sky. The practice seemed simple, yet profound. Rohan began to understand that healing wasn't about fixing external circumstances. It was about cultivating peace within himself. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the monk's voice carried one more teaching: freedom from comparison. Comparison, the monk said, is a thief. It robs you of joy, contentment, and self-worth. When you measure your life against someone else's, you will always find something lacking. The monk told Rohan, your happiness should not depend on whether others succeed or fail. True peace comes when your sense of worth is not tied to someone else's journey. Rohan reflected on his envy toward his friend's success. He realized that his suffering wasn't caused by his friend's accomplishments, but by his own inability to accept his journey for what it was, a unique path, with its own lessons and timing. As the night deepened, the monk's teachings began to take root in Rohan's mind. Each lesson was like a lantern illuminating a previously dark corner of his soul. Are you ready to continue this journey, Rohan? The monk asked. Rohan's voice was steady and clear. Yes, master. I am ready. The night had given way to a quiet dawn, painting the sky with hues of gold and lavender. Rohan sat cross-legged on the cool earth, his mind lingering on the monk's words from the day before. The teachings had stirred something within him, a spark of clarity, a whisper of hope. But the weight of his past still clung to him like shadows at dusk, refusing to release their grip entirely. The monk, sensing Rohan's inner turmoil, approached him with his usual calm demeanor. Are you ready to continue? He asked softly. Rohan looked up, his eyes filled with both hope and hesitation. Master, your words yesterday opened my eyes, but this burden, it still feels heavy. I don't know how to let it go completely. The monk nodded knowingly. Healing is not instantaneous, Rohan. It is a journey, a slow and deliberate unraveling of the knots we've tied around our hearts. Today, we will go deeper, deeper into the roots of your suffering, your fears, and your desires. Only then can true freedom begin. And so, under the rising sun, the monk began to share the next chapter of his wisdom. The monk's voice carried the weight of timeless truth as he spoke about forgiveness and letting go. Rohan, you are holding on to anger, not just toward others, but toward yourself. You blame yourself for your failures, for the expectations you couldn't meet, for the disappointment you think you caused your family. But tell me, has this anger ever helped you? Has it ever lightened your burden? Rohan shook his head, his voice barely a whisper. No, master. It only makes me feel heavier. The monk placed a gentle hand on Rohan's shoulder. Anger and resentment are like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. These emotions corrode your mind, your body, and your spirit. Forgiveness, my son, is not about excusing someone's actions or forgetting the pain they caused. It is about freeing yourself from the chains of bitterness. But how do I forgive, master? How do I let go when the hurt feels so real? The monk smiled softly. Start with yourself, Rohan. Forgive yourself for the choices you made, for the moments you stumbled, for the times you failed. You are human, and humans are imperfect. When you release yourself from self-blame, forgiveness toward others will come more naturally. He handed Rohan a small, blank piece of paper and said, write down every resentment, every anger, every moment of pain you are holding on to. Pour it all out onto this page. And when you are done, burn it. Watch the smoke rise and let those burdens dissolve into the sky. Rohan spent hours writing. Each word felt like a stone being pulled from his chest. When he finally set the paper aflame, he watched the ashes scatter in the breeze, and for the first time, he felt a lightness he hadn't known in years. The next teaching was about self-worth and breaking the cycle of comparison. Rohan, the monk began, you have spent so much of your life measuring yourself against others, your family, your friend, society's expectations. But your worth is not something that can be measured or compared. Rohan frowned slightly. But master, isn't success proof of worth? If I fail again and again, doesn't that mean I am worthless? The monk shook his head gently. Success and failure are just outcomes, my son. They are like the tides of the ocean. They come and they go. But your worth is like the ocean itself. Vast, deep, and unchanging. The monk paused and asked, "Do you know why your friend's success hurts you so much?" Rohan looked away, his voice trembling. "Because it reminds me of my failures." "Exactly," said the monk. "But his success is not your failure. His journey is not your journey. When you compare your path to someone else's, you rob yourself of the beauty and uniqueness of your own story. Instead of asking, 'Why did he succeed while I failed?' ask yourself, 'What can I learn from my experience?'" The monk continued, "Your journey is yours alone, Rohan. Walk it with pride, not shame. Carry your lessons like treasures, not burdens." Rohan closed his eyes, letting the monk's words sink deep into his heart. The next morning, as the golden sun crested the horizon, the monk began his next lesson: acceptance of impermanence. Everything in life, Rohan, is temporary. Success, failure, joy, sadness, each is like a passing cloud. But we suffer because we cling to these moments, trying to make them last forever or fearing that they will end too soon. The monk gestured toward a droplet of dew resting on a leaf nearby. "Do you see that droplet? In a few minutes, the sun will rise higher, and it will evaporate. But does that make its brief existence any less beautiful?" Rohan shook his head. "Life is like that droplet, my son. Every moment is precious because it is fleeting. Instead of clinging to what was or fearing what will be, embrace what is. Live fully in the present, and you will find that every moment becomes a treasure." The monk's words were a balm to Rohan's restless mind. He began to see his failures, his losses, and even his regrets not as chains, but as lessons etched into the fabric of his life. The conversation turned to finding purpose in struggle. "Rohan, when we face struggles, it's easy to fall into despair and believe that life is meaningless. But the truth is, struggles are teachers in disguise. They reveal our strengths, test our resilience, and guide us toward growth." The monk shared a story of a tree growing on the edge of a cliff. The winds howled, the rain poured, and yet the tree clung to the rocky soil with all its strength. Over time, its roots grew deeper, its branches grew stronger, and it became unshakable. Your struggles, Rohan, are the winds and rains of your life. They are shaping you into something stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Rohan felt a shift within him, a realization that his struggles weren't curses but opportunities for transformation. As the sun began its descent, the monk spoke about gratitude as a practice. Gratitude is not just saying thank you. It is a way of seeing the world. Even in your darkest moments, there is something to be grateful for. A breath of air, a beam of sunlight, a kind word from a stranger. These are all gifts. He encouraged Rohan to end each day by reflecting on 3 things he was grateful for. Gratitude shifts your focus from what you lack to what you have. And when you focus on abundance, life begins to feel richer, fuller. Rohan nodded, feeling a newfound warmth in his chest. That night, as the stars emerged one by one, Rohan sat quietly by the fire. He reflected on the monk's teachings, each one a thread weaving together the fabric of his healing. Forgiveness had lightened his burden. Self-worth had freed him from comparison. Impermanence had taught him to embrace the present. Purpose had given meaning to his struggles. Gratitude had opened his heart to abundance. But deep within him, he sensed that the journey wasn't over. The monk had more to share. Wisdom that would guide him not only through healing but through life itself. As the fire crackled softly and the sky stretched infinitely above, Rohan felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: peace. "Are you ready for the final part of this journey, Rohan?" the monk asked, his voice a soft whisper in the night. Rohan looked up, his eyes steady and clear. "Yes, master, I am ready." The night was calm, and a faint breeze carried the scent of distant flowers. The fire crackled softly as its warm glow danced across Rohan's face. He sat across from the monk, his heart no longer heavy with despair, but filled with quiet anticipation. The monk's teachings over the past days had unraveled the tangled knots of his mind, revealing a path he never knew existed. But the journey was not yet complete. The monk, seated cross-legged with an air of timeless serenity, looked at Rohan with eyes that seemed to see into the depths of his soul. "Rohan," he began softly, "you've taken the first steps toward healing, toward freeing yourself from the invisible chains that have bound you for so long. But the path ahead requires courage. Not just the courage to face your fears, but the courage to live fully, to embrace every moment with an open heart." Rohan nodded, his voice steady. "I'm ready, Master. Teach me." The monk's gentle smile illuminated the dim night as he began to share the final lessons, the lessons that would guide Rohan not just toward healing, but toward a life filled with meaning, purpose, and peace. The monk began with a profound teaching on self-responsibility and inner strength. "Rohan, it's easy to blame others for our misfortunes. We blame our families, our circumstances, our luck. But true freedom begins when you take responsibility, not just for your successes, but for your failures, your choices, and your emotions." Rohan frowned slightly. "But Master, how can I be responsible for things beyond my control?" The monk's gaze was steady. Responsibility does not mean controlling everything. It means owning your response to what happens. You cannot control the storm, Rohan, but you can control how you sail your ship through it. You cannot control what others say or do, but you can control how you let it affect you. He paused before continuing. "When you take responsibility for your life, you take back your power. You stop waiting for others to change, for circumstances to improve, or for miracles to happen. Instead, you become the architect of your own destiny." Rohan felt a weight lift from his shoulders as he absorbed the monk's words. He realized how much of his life had been spent waiting for approval, for validation, for circumstances to change. But now, he understood that change begins within. The next morning, the monk spoke about embracing vulnerability. "Rohan, vulnerability is not weakness. It is the courage to show up, to be seen, and to let yourself feel, even when the outcome is uncertain. Most people spend their lives building walls around their hearts, thinking they're protecting themselves. But those walls also keep out love, connection, and joy." Rohan looked thoughtful. "But Master, isn't vulnerability dangerous? What if I get hurt again?" The monk nodded. "Yes, vulnerability carries risk, but it also carries reward. Think of a seed buried in the soil. It must break open, become vulnerable to the earth, the water, and the sun. Only then can it grow into a tree. Without vulnerability, there is no growth, no connection, no life." The monk leaned closer. "Allow yourself to feel, Rohan. Allow yourself to be seen, not as someone perfect, but as someone real. The world doesn't need perfect people. It needs people who are willing to show up with courage and authenticity." A soft breeze rustled the leaves, and Rohan felt a gentle stirring in his chest. He realized how often he had hidden behind walls of pride and fear, refusing to let others see his struggles, his pain, or his hopes. As the day unfolded, the monk guided Rohan into the next teaching, finding joy in small moments. "Rohan," the monk said with a smile, "happiness is not something you chase, it's something you notice. It's not a distant mountain peak to conquer, but a series of small moments scattered throughout your day." He gestured toward a butterfly fluttering nearby. "Do you see that butterfly? It doesn't plan its day, worry about the past, or fear the future. It simply exists, enjoying the flowers, the breeze, and the sunlight. There's a lesson in that." The monk encouraged Rohan to start noticing the small moments. A warm cup of tea, the sound of birds at dawn, the feeling of sunlight on his skin. "Joy is not always loud or grand," the monk said. "Sometimes, it's found in the quietest of places." Rohan began to understand that happiness wasn't something to wait for. It was something to cultivate, moment by moment. Under a sky filled with stars, the monk spoke about the importance of service to others. "Rohan, true fulfillment comes not from what we gain, but from what we give. When you help others, not out of obligation, but out of love, you heal a part of yourself as well." Rohan thought about his past, about how much he had focused on his own struggles and failures. He realized he had rarely looked beyond his own pain to see the suffering of others. The monk continued, "Service doesn't always mean grand gestures. Sometimes, It's as simple as listening to someone who needs to be heard, offering a kind word, or sharing what little you have with someone in need. He paused before adding, when you lift others, you lift yourself. When you heal others, you heal yourself. That is the beauty of compassion. It is a gift that blesses both the giver and the receiver. Rohan felt a quiet resolve settle within him. He knew that moving forward, he would not just seek his own healing, but also contribute to the healing of others. The final lesson came as the night deepened and the fire dimmed. The power of perseverance. Life is not a straight path, Rohan, the monk said. There will be moments of light and moments of darkness. There will be triumphs and failures, joys and sorrows. But what matters is not how many times you fall, it's how many times you rise. The monk shared a story about a bamboo tree. For years, the bamboo seed remains hidden beneath the soil, showing no signs of growth. But beneath the surface, it's growing roots, preparing for something extraordinary. Then, one day, it shoots up, growing several feet in just a few weeks. The monk's eyes glimmered in the firelight. Your journey is like that bamboo tree, Rohan. Even when you don't see progress, trust that growth is happening beneath the surface. Keep going, keep showing up, and one day, you'll look back and realize how far you've come. Rohan closed his eyes, breathing deeply. The monk's words had reached a place deep within him, a place where fear, doubt, and despair had once lived. Now, there was only clarity, purpose, and a quiet determination. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, the monk handed Rohan the small box he had given him earlier. Do you remember what I told you about this box, Rohan? Rohan nodded. You said it contains something that can guide me through my darkest moments. The monk smiled. Yes, but remember, Rohan, the real treasure isn't in this box. It's within you. The courage to face your fears, the strength to keep moving forward, the wisdom to embrace life fully. All of it is already within you. Rohan bowed deeply, his voice steady. Thank you, Master. You have given me more than I could ever ask for. With the monk's blessings, Rohan descended the mountain. But this time, he carried no burden. Only a heart filled with gratitude, a mind clear with purpose, and a soul alight with hope. If this story has touched your heart, if its lessons have resonated with your soul, I invite you to subscribe to our channel, Buddhism in Modern Life. Together, let us continue to explore these timeless teachings, to seek wisdom in the stillness, and to walk this path of mindfulness, compassion, and inner peace. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Until we meet again, may your path be filled with light, love, and quiet strength.